What happens when a promotional interview turns into a full-blown confrontation that nobody saw coming? When two professionals, who are supposed to be on the same side, suddenly find themselves in a battle of words that spirals completely out of control? Well, that is exactly what unfolded during what was meant to be a routine appearance on the Today Show, and trust me, you need to hear every single word of what went down. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think about celebrity interviews going off the rails, because this one is absolutely wild. So here is how it all started. Blake Lively walked onto the Today Show set with the kind of confidence you would expect from someone who has been doing press tours for years. She was there to promote her latest project, and everything seemed perfectly normal at first. Sheinelle Jones greeted her with a warm smile, they exchanged pleasantries, and the cameras started rolling. The first few questions were standard fare, the kind of softball questions that guests usually get during morning show appearances. Sheinelle asked about the new project, about Blake's inspiration, about working with the cast and crew. Blake answered with her usual charm, laughing at the right moments, giving thoughtful responses that seemed perfectly rehearsed. But then, something shifted. Sheinelle leaned forward slightly, her expression becoming more serious, and she said, "I want to ask you about something that has been circulating online recently. There have been some comments from people who worked on your previous projects, and they have painted a picture that, well, it contradicts the image you present publicly. How do you respond to that?" Blake's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she recovered. "I am sorry, but I am not really sure what you are referring to. Could you be more specific?" Sheinelle did not back down. There have been allegations about difficult behavior on set, about making demands that put production teams in challenging positions, about creating an environment that some crew members described as, and I am quoting here, unnecessarily tense. These are not just random rumors. These are statements from people who have worked directly with you. The air in the studio suddenly felt heavier. Blake shifted in her seat, and her voice took on an edge that was not there before. "You know what, Sheinelle? I find it really interesting that you are bringing this up now, during what is supposed to be a conversation about my work. I have been in this industry for a long time, and I have worked with hundreds of people, and the vast majority of those experiences have been incredibly positive. But I think what is happening here is that you are taking isolated incidents, if they even happened, the way they are being described, and you are trying to paint this broader narrative that just is not accurate." Sheinelle was not deterred. "But these are not isolated incidents, Blake. Multiple people have come forward. And I think what viewers want to know is, do you acknowledge that there might be some truth to these claims? Because part of growth is being able to look at yourself honestly and say, yes, maybe I could have handled things differently." Blake let out a sharp laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Growth? You want to talk to me about growth? How about we talk about the growth of a media landscape that loves to tear down successful women? How about we talk about the double standard where a man can be demanding and he is called a perfectionist, but a woman does the same thing and suddenly she is difficult? I care deeply about my work, Sheinelle. I care about the quality of what I put out into the world. And if that means I have high standards, if that means I push for things to be done right, then I am not going to apologize for that." The tension was palpable now. Sheinelle sat back slightly, her expression unreadable, and then she pressed forward. "I hear what you are saying about double standards, and that is a valid conversation to have. But I do not think that is what this is about. This is about specific behaviors that people have described. One crew member said that you refused to come out of your trailer for hours because the bottled water was not the brand you requested. Another said that you made a personal assistant cry because your coffee order was wrong. These are not about having high standards, Blake. These are about how you treat people." Blake's face flushed, and her voice rose. "Okay, first of all, you are taking things that have been twisted and exaggerated, and you are presenting them as fact. You were not there. You do not know the context of any of those situations. And frankly, I think it is pretty irresponsible journalism to repeat these things without actually verifying them or giving me a fair chance to respond. You are getting a chance to respond right now, Sheinelle said, her tone firm but measured. That is exactly what this is. I am asking you directly about these allegations, and instead of addressing them, you are deflecting. You are making this about gender politics and media bias, which again, those are important topics, but they are not what I asked you about. Blake shook her head, clearly frustrated. I am not deflecting. I am giving you context. Because you cannot just come at me with these accusations and expect me to sit here and defend myself against things that are being misrepresented. Do you know how many hours I work? Do you know the pressure that comes with being the lead on a project? With having your name attached to something that hundreds of people are depending on to succeed? When you are in that position, yes, you have to make tough calls. Yes, you have to be firm. And sometimes that means people do not like you, and that is just part of the job. Sheinelle leaned forward again, her voice steady. But Blake, there is a difference between being firm and being disrespectful. And what I am hearing from you right now is a lot of justification but not a lot of accountability. Can you honestly sit here and tell me that you have never crossed a line? That you have never treated someone in a way that, looking back, you wish you had not? Blake stared at her for a long moment, and you could see the internal battle playing out on her face. When she finally spoke, her voice was tight. I think we all have moments we are not proud of, but I also think that those moments do not define us, and I refuse to let my entire career, everything I have worked for, be reduced to a few isolated incidents that are being blown completely out of proportion by people who have their own agendas. What agendas? Sheinelle asked, her eyebrows raised. Are you suggesting that the people who have spoken out are lying? I am suggesting, Blake said slowly, deliberately, that there is a lot more to these stories than what is being reported. And I am suggesting that it is really convenient for certain people to come forward now when I am in the spotlight, when I am promoting something that is really important to me. Timing is everything, Sheinelle. The interview was spiraling now, and it was clear that neither woman was willing to back down. Sheinelle's jaw tightened, and she said, So you are accusing these people of opportunism, of making up stories or exaggerating them for attention? Blake threw up her hands. I am not accusing anyone of anything. I am just pointing out that we live in a world where accusations can be weaponized, where people can say whatever they want without any consequences, and the person being accused is automatically guilty in the court of public opinion. And I think that is wrong. I think that is deeply unfair. What is unfair? Sheinelle countered, her voice rising for the first time, is when people in positions of power use that power to mistreat others and then hide behind excuses when they are called out on it. And I am not saying that is what you did, Blake, but I am saying that your refusal to even acknowledge the possibility that you might have some things to work on is concerning. Blake stood up abruptly, her microphone still clipped to her collar. You know what? I did not come here for this. I came here to talk about my work, to have a conversation about something I am passionate about, and instead I am being ambushed with tabloid gossip. This is not journalism, Sheinelle. This is a hit piece disguised as an interview. Sheinelle remained seated, her composure intact despite the chaos unfolding. Sitting down and asking tough questions is journalism, Blake. And if you are not willing to answer them, that tells viewers everything they need to know. Blake reached for her microphone, fumbling with the clip, but Sheinelle's voice cut through the tension. Running away does not make this go away, Blake. It actually makes it worse. Blake froze, her hand still on the microphone. She turned back to face Sheinelle, her eyes blazing. Running away? I am setting a boundary. I am refusing to participate in a conversation that was clearly designed to humiliate me on national television. Sheinelle shook her head. Nobody is trying to humiliate you, but you are a public figure, Blake. You have millions of fans, you have influence, And with all of that comes a responsibility to be held accountable. You do not get to pick and choose which questions you answer. This is about you taking anonymous accusations and treating them like they are verified facts. Where is the journalistic integrity in that? Sheinelle's expression hardened. The accusations are not anonymous, Blake. Names have been attached to these statements. People have put their reputations on the line. And you dismissing them without even considering that there might be validity to what they are saying, that is what lacks integrity. Blake sat back down, arms crossed tightly. Fine. Tell me, specifically, what did these people say I did? Because so far, all I am hearing are vague accusations about being demanding or difficult. Sheinelle glanced at her notes. One production assistant said you berated her in front of the entire crew because she accidentally brought you regular milk instead of oat milk in your coffee. She said you called her incompetent. She was 22 years old, Blake. It was her first major production job. Blake's face flushed. That is not what happened. I have a severe dairy allergy. Not a preference, an allergy. I had made it very clear to the entire production team that I could not have dairy. That day, I was handed a coffee with regular milk, and I took a sip before I realized what it was. I had an allergic reaction. My throat started closing up. I could not breathe properly, and I was terrified. So yes, I was upset. Yes, I raised my voice. But it was because someone's carelessness could have sent me to the hospital. Sheinelle paused. Did you explain that to the assistant in the moment? I was in the middle of a medical emergency, Sheinelle. I was panicking. So no, I did not take the time to calmly explain my medical history while I was struggling to breathe. Sheinelle nodded slowly. Okay, but here is the thing, Blake. That is one incident. There are multiple other stories. A script supervisor said you refused to film certain scenes because you decided on the day of shooting that you did not like the dialogue. You locked yourself in your trailer and would not come out until the script was rewritten. This caused a delay of several hours. What is your response? Blake leaned forward. My response is that I am an actor, and part of my job is to understand my character better than anyone else on that set. If something does not feel right, then yes, I am going to speak up. That is not being difficult. That is doing my job well. But you are not a writer, Blake. There is a difference between offering suggestions and holding an entire production hostage until you get your way. Blake's voice grew intense. I did not hold anyone hostage. The changes I suggested made the scene better. The director even admitted that afterwards. But of course, that part does not make it into the gossip mill. Did you consider that there might have been a way to express your concerns without shutting down production? Without making dozens of crew members stand around for hours? Blake's laugh was bitter. I was fighting for the integrity of the project. Sometimes that means production gets delayed. I think what is getting lost here is that your intentions might be good, but your methods are hurting people. At some point, you have to ask yourself if the ends justify the means. Blake stared at Sheinelle, vulnerability mixing with frustration. You want to talk about hurting people? You are sitting here, on live television, accusing me of being some kind of monster based on stories you did not even bother to verify. Do you know what that does to my reputation? Sheinelle did not flinch. Blake, these are documented complaints, and the fact that you just dismissed these crew members tells me everything I need to know about how you view the people you work with. That is not what I meant. I meant you did not bother to get multiple perspectives. You took one person's word and ran with it. So you are saying these people are lying? I am saying their version of events is incomplete at best. There is always more to the story, and you have already made up your mind about me. Sheinelle leaned back. You know what I find interesting, Blake? You have not once said you are sorry. Not once have you acknowledged that maybe you could have handled things better. Every single response has been a justification or a deflection. Blake's jaw tightened. I am not going to apologize for things I did not do or for situations that are being misrepresented. Nobody is asking you to grovel, Sheinelle said, her voice rising. What we are asking for is basic accountability. The ability to say, I am not perfect, I have made mistakes, and I am going to do better. But you cannot even do that. Blake stood up and unclipped her microphone. I came here in good faith to talk about a project I poured my heart into. Instead, you turned this into an ambush. I am not going to sit here and be disrespected anymore. Sheinelle remained seated. Blake, walking off set is only going to make this worse. This is going to be the story now. Blake paused at the edge of the set. You want a story? I am a woman in an industry that chews people up and spits them out. I have worked my entire life to get where I am. Yes, that has made me tough. Yes, that has made me demanding. But it has also made me good at what I do, and I refuse to apologize for that. If that makes me difficult, then fine. But I will not sit here and let you tear me down based on gossip. Sheinelle stood up, facing Blake directly. Nobody is asking you to shrink yourself. What we are asking is that you treat people with respect. When those people say working with you was a negative experience, the appropriate response is to listen and do better. Blake's voice broke. You sit here in your safe anchor chair, passing judgment, but you have never been in my position. You have never had the weight of an entire production on your shoulders. So do not lecture me about respect when you clearly have no respect for me. I have plenty of respect for what you do, Sheinelle replied firmly. What I do not respect is how you do it. You can be talented and successful and still treat others poorly. Blake's hands were shaking. I am done with this conversation. I am done with you. Then leave, Sheinelle said simply. But understand that when you walk out, you are confirming everything people have been saying about you. Is that really the image you want? Blake stood frozen, caught between staying and leaving. In that moment, something seemed to break. Her shoulders sagged, and she looked less like a movie star and more like someone genuinely overwhelmed. I cannot do this, she whispered. I cannot keep fighting like this. Sheinelle's expression softened slightly. Then stop fighting, Blake. Just be honest. Blake looked up, eyes glistening. I am exhausted. I am tired of being picked apart, tired of impossible standards. And yes, maybe I have taken that out on people who did not deserve it. Maybe I have been harder than I needed to be because I was so afraid of failing. But I do not know how to be any different. The studio was silent. Then maybe it is time to learn a different way, Sheinelle said quietly. Because this is not sustainable. It is hurting you just as much as everyone around you. Blake wiped at her eyes. I do not even know where to start. You start by admitting you need help. You start by reaching out to the people you have hurt. And you start by recognizing that being vulnerable is not weakness, that is strength. Blake looked down at the microphone in her hand. I do not know if I can do this right now. Not in front of cameras. Sheinelle nodded. That is fair. But this conversation is not going away. At some point, you are going to have to face this. Blake took a shaky breath. I know. I just need time. Then take that time, Sheinelle said. But do not hide. When you are ready to talk, really talk, people will listen. But it has to be genuine. Blake placed the microphone on the chair and turned toward the exit. Before she left, she looked back. For what it is worth, I am sorry. Not for defending myself, but for losing sight of the people around me. Sheinelle met her gaze. That is a start, Blake. Now you just have to follow through. And with that, Blake Lively walked off the Today Show set, leaving behind one of the most explosive interviews in recent memory. The cameras kept rolling for a few seconds, capturing Sheinelle's expression as Blake disappeared backstage, and then the production team cut to commercial. So there you have it, an interview that turned into a full-blown confrontation that exposed the real human cost of fame and ambition. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we bring you stories like this all the time. And drop a comment below. Do you think Blake handled this the right way? Or should she have stayed and finished the conversation? I want to hear your thoughts.